Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fractured Not Broken, the Relationship Wellness Podcast. It is your guy, Coach Reg, podcast host, relationship expert, author, and the host of this phenomenal podcast. I said to you guys when we first stood this up that we would have everyday people up to including experts in their field. And today, I'm excited to have join me an expert in her field. Her name is Dr. Nicole Monteiro.
Yes.
And she is a licensed clinical psychologist. And we're going to get into some things. And she does boundaries work with women as well as work in feminine energy. So I'm very curious to get into that one in a bit. So without further ado, Dr. Nicole, thank you for joining us on Fractured Not Broken. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Coach Reg, for the invitation. I love the platform. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah. So Dr. Nicole, please. Now, let me tell you guys.
Okay.
When I first met Dr. Nicole, we spoke and she said, just Nicole, but I know another Dr. Nicole and I call her Dr. Nicole. As I was like, okay, you get to be, she said, you can call me Dr. Nicole. So I'll likely refer to her as Dr. Nicole throughout the episode. But in any event, please share a little bit about your background, your family life, anything you want to share about you and what you do.
Okay, yes. So I'm Dr. Nicole Monteiro. On social media, I actually do go by Dr. Nicole, and I am a licensed psychologist. I'm a certified life and business coach. I'm a professor, but more importantly, I am passionate about women and well-being and relationships. And as a wife and mother of two, and as women, we hold so many different hats. Like I'm a daughter, a sister, and all of that. I have figured out through my own life that relationships are the key. And if our relationships are not right, our relationship with ourselves, but mostly like with our spouse and our children, then it doesn't matter about all of the other titles and accolades. It's really about those relationships. And so more, over the past like 5 or 6 years, I've really poured into helping women in particular with their relationships and just how they see themselves and being confident in that.
Very good. Very good. So you work with women in no matter the relationship, romantic or non-romantic, correct?
Yes. But what I have found is that the unspoken struggle that a lot of women have is in their romantic relationships.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. I mean, I'm a psychologist, so I work with trauma and anxiety, depression, and all of those things. But what I had to learn to really dig and understand about women is that they may struggle with their relationships and feel alone and not really reach out, right?
Gotcha.
They might not really give words to it.
Got you. So do you do confidence work as well? Esteem?
Yes,
building?
yes.
Okay.
Esteem building, because you can't have a healthy relationship until you have one with yourself.
100%.
So yes,
100%.
definitely.
So what are some of the things? What are like you mentioned an unspoken challenge they have, right? So when you notice that, how do you help your clients see that about themselves and how it's showing up in their relationships?
Yes, that's a great point. So as a coach, you know that we are not dictating to people what they should or shouldn't do.
Right.
And so much is allowing people to see for themselves through a series of powerful questions, but also the experience I have working with women, especially high achieving women, ambitious women, women who've done a lot. And so when their relationships aren't going so well, they are kind of taken off track because they're like, I did school, I climbed up this ladder, I did this. Why can't I do it with my relationships as well?
That's interesting. Years ago, I had a show during the pandemic called Sip and Chill with Coach Reg. And we did an episode around that. High achieving women who are successful. They've done well in school. They've done well professionally. They're accustomed to achieving. Yes. And in relationships, they're trying to fix something because it has to work because everything else in my life has worked. This must also. And sometimes you kind of like, it's colloquial or a saying that says, you're throwing good money after bad.
Yes.
Right?
What is it? There's an economic term for that. Like the more you invest, you keep throwing money at it.
Yes, the ends no longer justify the means because that's like I'm not benefiting here. This is a drain, and maybe even have some toxicity assigned as well.
Yes.
So are you saying with the women that you work with, are those high achievers? Are they pursuing relationships that really aren't serving them and aren't aligned with what they ultimately want for themselves? Is that kind of the same kind of a thing, or no?
Well, that's one avenue, right? The
Okay.
relationships that aren't serving them, or the relationships that could serve them,
Mm-hmm.
but because of communication issues, or again,
Yeah.
we're going to get into the feminine
Of course.
energy,
Of
like
course.
you're
Of course.
approaching a relationship like you do a career or a class,
Got it.
and it's not the same.
Got you. Got you. And you're right. We're definitely going to get to that. So that's very curious. So when you talk about the approach and and in their relationships, how is it? Is there something that you see more of than in professional women? Is there an indicator like, oh my God, I can see this a mile away? Do you have those kinds of indicators?
Yes. It's sometimes, okay, high achieving women, don't come at me. I'm one of you, okay, right? But sometimes there can be some rigidity,
Okay.
like thinking that like we succeeded because we followed a formula, so to speak, right? In some way, whatever our field is. And not understanding that a lot of times relationships require more flow and more ability to be a bit flexible, not accepting toxic things, unhealthy things, but not approaching it as with like so much control.
Right.
And I do observe that a lot with, high achieving women, the desire to kind of control things in the relationship. And sometimes high achievers became that because they had to, like other things in their childhood, where they excelled was controlling their academics and their profession. And so if you don't heal some of what kind of happened in your childhood, you will repeat those things, want to be in control, want to, and it's understandable why, but this is what I see, like you're trying to control. You don't really know how to communicate in a softer way. You think that you're too rigid, right? Those are some of the key things.
So that's it. So communication. Obviously, I deal with EQ. That's I would say, not reluctantly, confidently, I would probably be an EQ expert. Because communication is something that is important no matter the relationship. But the challenge is we make assumptions in our communications, right? We believe because we're clear and the hearer is acknowledging that they understand. And that's not necessarily true. And we don't take the next step to ask the question, please tell me in your own words what you heard me say to confirm understanding, right? Because there's a difference between acknowledgement and agreement. Right?
Exactly.
So I just wonder in the communication parts, because again, in EQ, the attributes, self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, and social awareness, do you incorporate emotional intelligence into the work you do with women?
Yes. Actually, I did a study with some colleagues in my university around how emotional intelligence influences conflict, how you manage conflicts in a relationship. And that key thing you said, self-awareness. So a lot of times women, I'm not saying it's only women, but what I work with, you will focus on what I was clear. I'm a great communicator. I give presentations at work. I do this. And why didn't he get it? And we kind of attribute blame to the person who didn't understand. Versus looking at, did we give proper context? Were we tuned into their nonverbals? Were we willing to listen to their perspective, even though we felt strongly about ours?
Exactly.
So all of those come to play, as you imagine, in a relationship.
1000%.
With your spouse, with the person, committed relationship. And then sometimes women will be non-committal because it's a little bit easier in terms of not always having to deal with the conflict. And
so detached.
Yeah, a little bit detached.
Okay.
Or I'm not going to
invest.
Commit. I'll kind of have a series of situationships or things that I don't have to go so deeply and self-reflect.
Very surface, because if I invest too much of me, I may not, my energy or my level, my commitment may not be matched.
I'll be disappointed. I'll be hurt.
You know what? We can't control those things, as you know. And so it's funny, not funny, but interesting, as you were sharing about when the women that you work with or some communicate, when really humans communicate, we make a ton of assumptions. And so we are offended because we believe we're clear, we believe we're well-spoken, we have a great command of the language. Oh my gosh, what did you not understand? And it's, to be honest, it's a little arrogant, if we want to call a spade, right? Because we can be very clear, but that doesn't mean that we're understood. And so in my book, Love, Relationships, and Sometimes Just Letting Go, one of the things I talked about is AAA. You know, your car breaks down, you may call AAA, but don't call AAA in relationships. In other words, don't attack, don't accuse, don't assume.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
Because it's going to break, the person's going to become defensive, right? For example, if a woman says, or a person says, right, doesn't matter gender, we need to talk. Most people are going to shut down.
Yeah.
Right. But if you were to say, you have the same message, but delivered differently, maybe this, hey, listen, you know, some things I've been thinking about, and I like to get your thoughts on them, and I like to share mine.
Yes.
Are you okay with that? What did I just say? We need to talk.
Yeah.
Without saying we needed to talk. Because if I invite you to the conversation, now we both are participating. It's a shared responsibility. We're going to mitigate the
wall that comes
exactly,
up.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm not attacking, I'm not accusing, I'm asking questions. And that's the other part. We make statements sometimes that are not, and we are confident in our statement, but it doesn't compel thought. That's why we ask questions.
Yes.
What did you hear? What did you notice? What are you curious about? What was important to you? Powerful questions.
Yeah.
So that it compels the hearer to think about their response before offering it.
Before just kind 100%. Of reacting.
So let me ask you something. Now we're going to get to that feminine energy thing. So Dr. Nicole, please explain to me, and I ask you to save this for this episode.
Yes.
What is the definition, loosely, of feminine energy, and how does it show up? How do you see it show up in relationships?
Yes. So I think of feminine energy as a way of being and of connecting to, of course, men have feminine energy, women have masculine energy, but just as a woman, connecting to that part of your nature that allows you to be in sync with masculine energy, where you can be more in flow, where you can allow yourself to communicate more from an emotional level, allow yourself to be open, allow yourself to receive, right? So I think with achievement, we're doing. We aren't necessarily kind of allowing others to do for us or being able to be laid back. So it's a type of energy that is very powerful, but may look different because it may be a little more low key. Not that it's not, doesn't have its own space to take up.
Sure.
But masculine energy tends to be more kind of control, upfront leadership. Feminine energy is power from the perspective of, I always tell women, you can influence from your state of being. And I hope I'm not getting too out there, but like your state of being when you are so confident, you feel so in tune with yourself, you understand your emotions, you understand that if you express something and someone doesn't see it your way, you're not taking it personally, right?
Gotcha.
There's a level of emotional intelligence, of self attunement, and confidence that doesn't have to be so upfront, right? Like they say, a lioness doesn't have to roar to woo the crowd.
Absolutely.
For them to see
just
that she's powerful. Yes.
So is that what's the adjust? So how are you seeing that show up with the women that you work in, the relationships they participate?
Yeah.
Are they becoming more successful? Were they aware of this initially and say, "Oh, I was already doing it. I didn't know that's what it was called," or it's like, "Man, that's something that I really need to kind of embrace or lean into to see if it's something that I can incorporate." What are you seeing with your clients, I guess?
The latter, right?
Okay.
That I realized I was cut off from this. I never saw examples of it, perhaps.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I thought I was given the message that it was weak, so I abandoned it. But for different reasons, I'm hearing women say they need to reconnect.
Right.
And in my program, one program I have, it's inner circle. It's like a membership for women. I call it my inner circle.
Okay.
And it's where women, regardless of relationship status, want to work on boundaries, feminine energy, communication. And what so many of the women, after just 3 months in the program, if their relationship status is married or, in a relationship, they're like, wow, he's responding to me differently. Wow, there aren't these arguments. Or, wow, I'm feeling more comfortable being vulnerable, which then kind of, puts him into action to want to protect me
Absolutely.
versus
Absolutely.
kind of us going toe to toe and,
We respond. Men, if we care about a woman, it doesn't have to be a romantic
yeah,
person. It can be anyone, any woman that we care about. We want to do that.
yes,
But we also have to feel needed and that you want us to do that.
yes,
Because if your presentation is that you got it and I got it because you're
mm-hmm,
accustomed to doing, we're
yeah,
missing each other. See, because I'm not saying you got it because you told me you had it.
mm-hmm,
I'm saying you got it because it's a perception.
yes,
And that's the mistake.
yes,
And it's so subtle and it's so innocuous, it gets missed on every turn.
yes,
And so if I look at you and I notice that you seem to have it together, you're competent, you're capable,
mm-hmm,
you're confident. The challenge is I may, as a man, because we for so many years
mm-hmm.
heard this, I don't need a man.
I
And we
touch
and
on
we
that
and we
too.
hear
Yes,
that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you don't need
exactly.
nobody. Okay, you got it, right? So,
Yes.
but that's really not supportive
Mm-hmm.
for either of us, right?
No.
Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel needed and wanted
Mm-hmm.
by the person we want.
Yeah.
And if that person is not allowing us to do that, offering that option for us
Mm-hmm.
and to us, then we're going to retreat and
Yeah.
kind of and the walls come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the weird thing is, and one of the things about communication is I believe that humans want to, we simply don't know how
Yeah.
to be better.
Yes.
And when you talk about feminine energy, I think it is powerful. It is not weak because a man who can stand back and observe and
Mm-hmm.
allow something to unfold and allow his woman, his lady, to be
Mm-hmm.
his wife, to be who she is, and to encourage that and to support that and champion that
Yeah.
and not feel threatened.
Yeah.
See, because too many times I noticed my personal experience that you can easily fall into competition.
Yeah. And you don't want that in a relationship.
It's not you. It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
And it turns into a whole thing if we don't even first recognize it's happening, and we wonder why we're drifting.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing: when we have experiences, what we sometimes often miss, is that because we remain in relationship, we think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another assumption
Mm-hmm.
that we're taking that we've been together. You haven't left me. I haven't left you. That this is where we want to be.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge: if we've been together for some time, 9 times out of 10, we have hurt, bruised, or damaged each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we may remember the experience, but what we don't ask is, how did you feel about that?
Yeah.
Because what I want to know is if I hurt you. Because if you don't tell me, then obviously I can't read your mind.
Yeah.
So it's a shared responsibility, yours to tell me, me to ask,
communication.
right? And if we can, simple things, small things, and it sounds easy to do, the challenge is we have so many bad habits that prevent us from being great in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about feminine energy, I think is powerful. Thank you for explaining that, by the way, because I was like, what does that mean?
And a lot of people are like, I get a lot of like, what is that? Because they feel like it's saying you want to put me down, and it's like, no, you are so powerful,
100%,
and you don't have to be, all
rah rah, like you said,
exactly.
Because here's again, men, we have to be honest about, I've heard men say, I'm sorry. I've heard people say, and some men talk about how a woman is intimidating. I don't know if I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Have you heard anything like that before?
Yes.
So I'll share my thoughts, and I certainly want to get yours. But I'll let you go first.
So I think there's validity on both sides, right?
Okay.
Like, I think that whenever we put the onus on the other, like, well, she made me feel intimidated.
Right.
You have to own your own feelings and what is being triggered in you. On the other hand, when I also hear women saying, well, they just don't like a strong woman, is again, you're not self-aware of how you may be coming off.
Right.
And if you're getting the same message over and over, where it's like, okay, I didn't want to say that, I was scared you're going to take it personally, or you were too, then maybe you might want to self-reflect on how you are communicating, how you're coming off. Absolutely. And then as the man, like you said, if you're so focused on being intimidated by women, like you need to self-reflect as well.
Absolutely. And that's kind of where I was. That's why I was like, yep, I agree. Because I think it's not intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
It may be the person who says or feels that they may have some feeling and or sense of inadequacy
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
don't feel like I have level footing. Because if you're self-confident, self-assured, that's portable.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter where you place
Who
the
the
person.
person
They're
is.
going to be just fine. And they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be threatened or intimidated or feeling as though they should shrink in the presence of anyone.
Yes.
Because they're like, hey, I'm here too.
Yes.
And again, that's our ego. Our ego and pride gets us every time as a man, as men, I should say. And then there's other things, narcissism, but we won't even get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really it's a whole thing. And I just wish that we could see each other. Men could see women, women could see men, for individuals.
Yes.
Not what we think they should be, but actually aware of who they actually are.
Yeah.
And not attacking what we don't understand. What's
and
wrong with you?
Yeah,
right?
Putting it on the other. And I think the more you become comfortable in who you aren't as concerned. Like, if I know that I'm a healthy, feminine woman and just in touch with myself, I'm not as concerned with the people who don't like that. I'm more so focused on those that are attracted to that.
Absolutely.
And so the more you kind of, again, like with communication, focus on I statements and how I feel versus attacking, then I think that's going to draw people to you. So when women kind of say, well, I can't find a man because I'm this and that, let's not focus too much externally. Let's first kind of understand what's going on within.
Absolutely.
What are you trying to attract? And what is your energy that's going to attract that?
For sure. Question. So you do boundaries work also?
Yes.
Correct? So how does that work? Is the boundaries work first, or helping the person identify who they are, what they want, and understanding why they want it, not just something they heard. It's something they actually recognize they need. And then once that's known, is the boundaries work next, or how does that work for you and your clients?
So it works together, because to start having boundaries, you have to do a lot of self-reflection. So if you haven't realized already, if you work with me, it's going to be a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection. And so, because I can look at someone and tell their boundaries are unhealthy. Either they're too loose or inflexible, they're getting run all over and they start to feel resentful, or they're too rigid, right? So if you're too extreme, you're too rigid, you have these walls around you, and it's like, okay, there's a lot of tension there. And so it takes a lot of self-reflection to see what it is that you actually want and where the boundaries fit around it. So when I hear women talk about it feels like no one understands them, they can't get close to people, there's certain key phrases where I'm like, okay, you're too rigid. Let's try to understand, first of all, what you want to attract that isn't, like if you're attracting people that only take from you, then you're either over giving or you're over withholding, which I know sounds a bit like kind of contradictory, but when you're so intent on like having these rigid boundaries, protecting yourself, no one's going to take advantage of you, it shows that you're insecure. And people, I've worked with a lot of women that have that loud bark, like no one's going to take advantage of me. They still end up over giving, and they attract people that are moochers, that are just not healthy themselves.
100%. It's funny. I remember years ago, I've known women who are, again, high achievers, executives at an early age, like early 30s, doing really well.
Yes.
And it's interesting when you talk about that energy, that rah-rah, they're go-getters. Nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
But behind all of that is this little girl who just wants to be told she's beautiful, who wants to be held and hugged when needed, not from a sexual perspective, but just to
intimacy and protection.
100%. And so, but you have to understand that. You have to be able to see beyond it and not say, you're tripping, what's wrong with you? Hey, what's going on? Do you know where that comes from?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Well, that response. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Am I yelling at you? Has my level increased? Because we tend to match energy. Again, unknowingly, because we make an assumption. Like if I don't understand what you said, my response informs, wait a minute, if I say something to you and you say, why would you say that? And it's kind of like, I was just asking a question. Clearly, what you said was not heard as you intended. Knee jerk can be to respond with the same energy that was given you.
Well, I said it because.
Exactly. And that's not cool because it's like, hold on. If I know my intention was pure towards you, your response suggested that your response wasn't pure towards me. It's an opportunity is how I refer to it. It's an opportunity to ask a question. Hold on a second. What's going on? What just happened? And not what's wrong with you? What are you doing? What shifted? Because we all have shifts.
Yeah.
Something can happen. We can be cool 2 seconds and we have a thought and all of a sudden,
and it's like a trigger.
100%. But it's the noticing.
Yeah.
If we could learn to be, my opinion and my encouragement to my clients and people in general in relationships, to be more curious than critical.
Yeah.
Right? If I can ask you a question about something I'm noticing, it gives you an opportunity for you to share with me what you are doing and what's important to you.
Be more vulnerable.
Exactly.
Right?
Because it shows I care. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter how many times I tell you I love you if my actions don't reflect that.
Yeah.
My actions aren't aligned. But we want to hear the words. And we say, but they said this, but what is that person doing?
Yeah.
Trust comes when their actions and your words are aligned. Now I can have confidence in that. But it's that awareness because sometimes, to your point about working with persons and helping them increase their self-awareness so that they can be more successful in the relationships, starts with understanding that it's not just what you think, it's asking the person what did they hear, understanding what they want and being willing to respect it, and asking them to listen to you and be willing to respect what you ask. It's another chapter in love relationships is, do you offer what you ask? We have all these requirements, but yet what are we willing to do?
Yes.
You see?
And it's become so transactional with the requirements and the rigid lists, and if they're not this, and I don't see a lot of, well, what am I offering? And not so much the whole, what are you bringing to the table, but like, what am I offering from an internal perspective, right? Because there's so many, I believe like we focus on the external because there's a scared little child, little girl, little boy, who didn't get what they needed. And we're looking for others, usually it's our intimate partner, to give it. And it's an unspoken expectation. They can put a lot of pressure, a lot of focus on you. And like you said, it's those nuances. When I work with clients, especially my boutique clients, coaching clients that work closely with me, we talk about, they're like, well, I read this and I thought I was doing this. And I said, there's so many nuances. That's why you need someone to point out for you and help you to see those nuances. The whole, well, why would you say that? When you could be like, okay, wow, thank you. I didn't know you felt like that. I would love to know more. And I might feel a little hurt, but I do want to hear why you felt that way.
But that's a good point, right? So when you say, ask the question, the answer, the answer is the answer. But it's not that the answer has to be accepted because the person's feeling or comment could have been based on a perception they had, not something you actually did. So that has to be reconciled, right? The other part of that is when you talk about expectations, the reason we are ever disappointed is because we had an expectation that went unmet. Now, if that expectation is unspoken, how can you hold someone accountable for something they didn't know?
They had no clue it's from your dad or your mom or all that stuff that 100%. Happened before.
And the person's like, where's this coming? And we don't even know to communicate because that person does not have the context. And we don't even know to say, hey, this is why. So people listen, ask, hey, where's that coming from?
And ask it. I always tell women there's 3 things: time, space, and tone. You have to have the right timing. So it's not always just when the person comes in the door, I need to talk to you. It's your tone. Your tone can just shift so many things. And sometimes you have to allow space. And you have to know that's part of the communication you develop as a partner. How much space do you two need? Don't give too much to where, well, I'm scared, I'm going to avoid, I'm never going to touch the topic again. But allow a person to take in what you said, and a lot of times men might need a little more time to process the verbalization. And I tell women, and this is not just in relationships, give a little context. right? If you're talking to your spouse, say, you know what, I had a hard day today. I want to tell you, I just need you to listen,
Right.
right?
Right.
Or I really need some help with how to deal with my so and so. I would love some feedback. Like, give a little context so the person can understand what you need,
Right.
versus just this like word vomit, and then
Right.
you're feeling kind of lonely because you're not getting what you need from the person.
That's a great point, because what I heard is you're inviting a person to a conversation. That question suggests I need you. I value your thoughts. I value your input, and I believe that you can meet me here. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be asking the question.
I would just keep
right.
it.
Again, it's an assumption, because in person, why are you asking me? Wow, I thought I could.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in a relationship. You know what I mean? But if we've built these walls, we're now, again, that competition. Oh, I thought you had it all figured out. What do you want to know what I think for? Again, that's a hurt comment. I've been hurt, and I've never spoken about my hurt. And your responses, again, with EQ, the response informs where that person may be in their thoughts. People speak from where they are.
Yeah.
If the response is harsh, and you know that your delivery wasn't, that likely has nothing to do with the person who delivered it.
Yeah.
It's the person who received it. That's the social awareness, reading the room. And and a part of it is getting better at that. Not what we want to see,
but what is.
Look at you. Exactly. Exactly.
And not taking it personally. I always tell people, something can hurt you, but you can also practice the art of not taking it personally. Because like you said, if that person lashes out, it's not about you.
Exactly.
You can express like, that hurt me, or you can acknowledge how you felt hurt, but really be curious about what's going on with them.
Indeed.
That they did that. And you have to do this in your relationships. Your partner deserves it, right? Like, we practice our presentations, and we're coming for an interview. We put so much energy into practicing and preparing for all of these other interactions. But sometimes when it comes to our relationships, it's like, we just kind of give the leftovers.
It's funny, right? When people first meet, the best foot forward.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same level of effort when they're practicing for presentations. But then when I get comfortable, I become
like
complacent. Like, yeah, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
You here now. What? You know what I'm saying? So, and it sounds cliche that, or the same thing that you did to get the person, saying you got to do to keep them. It's true.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And that's the thing, right? It's not easy. I think we want stuff right away, and we miss that there's work involved. There's going to be moments when you disagree.
Yeah.
There's going to be moments when you don't see the thing the same way, and that's okay. That's an opportunity to accept and respect, and to learn. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right.
It could be, I use examples sometimes, like, say a person liked a particular dessert early on, and they like, oh, you love chocolate cake. All right. Well, years later, you're like, hey, I got you a chocolate cake. I can't eat that anymore. What do you mean you can't eat it anymore? You used to love this. Yeah, but things change. I can't do that anymore. Oh. Now, two things happen. I made an assumption because I got you the cake.
Yeah.
You made an assumption I knew because you didn't tell me you had a challenge.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we missed. You see what I'm saying? So it's again, those little things, or those types of things that cause us to miss. But it's not about the challenge. It's an opportunity. How can we be better? What I tell my clients when we get started, particularly if it's a couple, I shouldn't say tell them. What I ask them.
Yes.
I said, listen, I got two questions for you. Just two. Do you love your person? Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, got it. You want the relationship? Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, great. You sure? Oh, yeah, why would you ask me that? No. I need you to, yeah, here's why.
Yeah.
See, because when we get into this work, you may lose sight of that.
So I want you to kind of remember.
I need you to know what you said.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly.
That you wanted to be here and that you want this person.
Yes.
Because you're making a choice. See, when we get beyond infatuation of a new relationship, now we're making a choice to choose this person and participate with this person each and every day. Yeah. That's where love languages come in. People tend to focus on, oh, my love language is X. That's wonderful. But what's your EQ like? You used economics earlier as an example. The way I refer to it, relating to explain, not so much explain, but to share how the relationship between love languages and EQ goes is in economics. Macroeconomics overarching.
Yeah.
Micro is very specific.
Yes.
Emotional intelligence, very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Love languages, overarching.
Yeah.
So if you get your
That's a
EQ
great
right,
way to,
love languages are a breeze.
yeah.
But if you don't deal with EQ and you
You'll
just want
just
to
be like,
focus,
well, I'm a gifts
I
person
did
and I
this.
wanted physical touch and
Exactly.
quality time.
And these, Dr. Nicole, I know it sounds simple and we're not oversimplifying, I promise.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. The reason we struggle is not because it doesn't make sense. My humble opinion, the reason we struggle, Dr. Nicole, is because we humans have horrible habits. And those habits are difficult to break. It takes 21 days of continued effort to build a new habit. You can't get to 19 and say, oh, I'll skip 20. I'm good.
Yeah.
No, you start
then
over.
it didn't work.
Exactly.
Right?
You have to do it because
you're
you're subconscious. That's what habits are. It's like involuntary. You don't have to tell your eyes to blink and your heart to beat.
Yeah.
It kind of happens. You see what I'm saying? So it's really it's an intentional exercise, but the participation, inviting the person to participate with you is where it counts. So with the women that you work with, the people I work with, it's the compulsion, it's the request to invite the person, whoever you care about, the relationship that matters to you, to participate with you.
Yes.
And not from a critical perspective, because I may have hurt you. And let's be honest, some of the things that are shared are going to be hard to hear.
And you will not be in relationship with someone and not be hurt or disappointed, whether it was intentionally or not.
Absolutely.
You are not going to have a marriage, a long-term relationship where one person doesn't hurt or disappoint the other.
For sure.
So that's and if you can accept that and still decide, as you said, to participate, you will be in a much better place because and I always tell women that I work with, don't focus on you. Like you said, these 21 days, let's focus on your responses.
Exactly.
You leaning in, you experiencing more vulnerability, you sharing your needs and learning how to communicate that, you listening. Don't get caught up in, well, he's still not doing it, and focus on you doing it, right? Think of it as you're trying to get fit.
Yeah.
You go to the gym. You're not saying, well, nobody else was at the gym, or it's all about you at that point.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing. You can really transform your relationship if you decide, even if that person isn't quite there yet. Because sometimes with couples, it'll be like, well, we have to be equally ready. As long as you're both there, right? You can you can model.
In different places, exactly.
And you can kind of transition, or you can transform yourself to where you come across differently. You're showing you need that person more. And then they're kind of like, okay, let me come home from work early today and not,
Absolutely. I love what you said, because that's so important to model in relationships, the behavior that we desire. And it's going to be, it can be frustrating because you're like, I'm doing, the person's not getting it. Okay, they may have low EQ.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they don't care.
Yeah.
They may not, no one's ever asked them. But then give them an opportunity. Now, we can all claim ignorance until somebody asks us a question. Now you can't say, no, know. Now we're making a choice. And the question becomes, what are you willing to do? And this is where the support comes from psychologists and coaches, where we can help you identify the thing and ask you questions to help you navigate the thing.
Yeah.
Boundaries are necessary to protect you. Boundaries are intended to protect things you want to keep in and keep out the things that should.
Yes.
And if you have to be clear on what a boundary is, because a lot of people like to they like buzzwords.
Yeah.
Intentionality. I'm leaning in. I'm caring. But you're not using. But you're not doing it.
Yeah.
See, here's a dog. Okay, listen. People confuse activity with productivity, and they're not the same.
Yeah.
You can be busy doing nothing, but you can also be busy or be active and be productive.
Yeah.
And the productivity comes in, let's check in. So if we have, one of the things I work with folks on, I believe, is agreements, right? So I developed a coaching model. It's called Decide, and it's DCIDE.
Okay.
The first D is for define and discuss. C is for communicate. I is for introduce or initiate. D is for design, which is the centerpiece of the model that buys you accountability and agreement. And E is for execution. And at every step, you have to execute.
Yes.
And so if there's something that people say, well, how do I know when I need an agreement? Great question. Are you frustrated about anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where you start.
Yes.
Because, and the agreement starts with not me saying, hey, I want to talk to you about something and I want to get your thoughts. We're past that. Let me ask you something. This right here bothers me. And I'm asking you, would you consider not doing that? I use the trash example, like taking the trash out.
Because those tend to be the things, right?
That annoy the heck out of you. The toothpaste cap or something in the bathroom, the bath tissue, whatever it may be. Hey, listen, would you replace that when you're done? Yeah, all right. That's not an agreement.
Yeah.
See, that's an acknowledgement because I want you to stop talking. But it's not an agreement. Agreement says, hey, listen, let me ask you, when you're done with that or when you notice it needs to be replaced, will you replace it? Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, got it. So just make sure I'm clear. That thing right there, you're saying you will replace when you notice it needs to be changed. I will do that. Got it. Now, here's the thing, Dr. Nicole. Got to remember, people, we have bad habits. So although you had a conversation,
you had the intention,
exactly,
maybe,
doesn't mean that they're going to get it right.
Yeah.
And so when you see the thing happen again that already led to your frustration, don't want to go back and say, I thought you said.
Yeah.
No. They have more runtime not doing the thing that you just asked them to do because they got to build a new habit. They got a bad habit that's etched in stone.
Like for
a minute,
months and
right?
years.
But when you have a new request, now it's like, oh, now, and instead of saying, I thought you said, you told me you were going to do, this is why agreements are so cool, Dr. Nicole. I'm telling you,
you kind of just like go back to what?
You go back to, hey, did we discuss, did we agree that you, oh man, if I ask you, did we agree? What did we talk about? Didn't we agree that you would not? Oh yeah. See, if I remind you of the agreement, I'm not attacking you.
And it's more of an external thing, like, oh, it's the agreement, right?
It's the agreement. I'm not coming at you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because too many times we attack the person, not the thing. And the person, and we conflate it. Because that's why you don't call people names. You don't call dumb, stupid, or whatever, because they're not that. The thing they may have done may have appeared that was right, but the individual isn't. And we conflate so many things. Something happens, it's an experience. We tend to overlay how we feel onto it as if it's so.
Yeah.
Let the thing be the thing, and let how you feel about it inform how you respond. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And if we don't know how to separate that, regardless of gender, regardless of relationship, we will be frustrated. We will walk in our hurts and our fears and not share because
all the time.
Exactly. And I don't understand why this keeps happening. And I like what you said. You bring them back to their individual work.
And it's the ability, what I heard with that is like the ability to detach.
Yes.
You have to detach, even in the moment, I mean, right? Like even in your closest relationships, you can't be so reactive.
Yeah.
You can acknowledge how you feel, but detach, from labeling and blaming and externalizing. And so I love that agreement because it's a way to detach. Like, oh, it's the agreement. Let's return to that.
Absolutely.
Versus it's you.
It's 100%.
You never listen. This is what I hear. He never listens. She never does this. They do this. And I always kind of sometimes look at my kids, right?
Okay.
With kids, you do have to repeat yourself. And I'm not saying your spouse is your child, but we were just doing that last night with my kids. Like, okay, somebody open this toothpaste. They have it all twisted up and bent up. And we already talked about that because it's not kind to the person behind you.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not here to yell and scream, but I'm here to say, like, remember we talked about that,
Absolutely.
right? So what can help you to remember? Because sometimes you're going quickly. So how can we help you? Because it's about being considerate and, all
and
that
building
stuff.
Those good habits early to be considerate, right?
Yeah.
To understand that we don't operate in a vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum. And there are others around us that we should consider. You know what, Dr. Nicole? I wish we had more time.
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
But listen, before we get out of here, is there anything you want to share, any upcoming events, anything you want people to know about, how to find you?
Yes. So you can find me at drnicolemonteiro.com. You can find me on social media, Instagram at I am Dr. Nicole. I also have a YouTube channel, Dr. Nicole Monteiro. You can search it on YouTube. I have a challenge coming up called the Flourish in Your Femininity Challenge. It's a 3-day challenge for women. We get into self-love, soft communication, healthy boundaries, and really how to operate in your feminine in your relationship so it's more fulfilling. That is coming up next week, March 3rd. I hold it regularly.
Okay.
It's a 3-day challenge, live classes taught by me, question and answer community Facebook group. It's really a chance to immerse yourself in, first of all, understanding your femininity and how is your power and like the nuts and bolts of it, right?
Right.
I also have a book called The Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint for women who are finally ready to win at love. And it goes into, the boundaries in relationships, communications, femininity. So yeah, there's many different avenues that you can work with me through. I have a podcast. It's a private podcast though, for my community. So women who are in my inner circle membership, which is called the Boundaries to Bliss Society, they get this podcast where we go deep into feminine communication, relationships, healthy boundaries. So if you get on my radar, you will be able to work with me, drnicolemonteiro.com. And I would love if your viewers see this in time, you need to sign up for the challenge. Go to my website. It's the Flourishing Your Femininity Challenge, 3-day challenge.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Nicole.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Yes. Great conversation.
100%.
Okay.
All right, F&B family, we're going to wrap this episode. It's been a joy having Dr. Nicole here. You heard how to reach. I'll put it in the show notes. Don't worry. Our contact information, the things that she has coming up, will be actually in the description, because we have a phenomenal team that supports us to make sure that you guys get the information you need in a timely fashion. Listen, it's your guy, Coach Reg, and I love. I'll see you on the next episode. Take good care. Bye.